At its core, Kingdom Hearts is a series that shouldn't really exist. When you hear about a collaboration between Disney and Square Enix, and notably the idea of the crossover of Disney and Final Fantasy characters, it largely sounds like some weird fever dream. But this unheard of collaboration ended up becoming the beloved foundation for one of the most endearing franchises in gaming. Kingdom Hearts seamlessly merged Disney's childlike wonder with Final Fantasy's narrative depth to create something entirely unique. But somewhere along the way, something changed. The series began to try and find its own identity, focusing on its own original story and characters. In the later entries of the series, the presence of both Disney and Final Fantasy diminished greatly, either becoming mostly distractions from the main story or ending up disappearing entirely. While the series is still loved greatly to this day, I feel the series has lost its way and is in desperate need to rekindle the embers that made the series special in the first place. Kingdom Hearts didn't stand only on its original story, it stood out because it was a bold and imaginative collaboration. When you ask the average gamer about the Kingdom Hearts series, they would generally label it as a crossover between Disney and the Final Fantasy series. While many fans of the series will try to correct the sentiment, stating that the series is actually a collaboration between Disney and Square Enix, you can't really deny that this crossover became a core part of what the series is known for. When Kingdom Hearts 1 released in 2002, it quickly became known not only for its original story, but how it seamlessly merged two iconic worlds together. Disney and Final Fantasy weren't cameos, they were built to be integral pillars that became the series' identity. Disney worlds weren't just stops along the way, they were a core part of the experience, providing a structure for the narrative and helping to reinforce the core themes of the game. They created set pieces to explore themes of connection and friendship that in turn left lasting impressions on the story and the characters. Maleficent wasn't just a boss fight, she manipulated the Heartless to cause conflict amongst the worlds. Jafar, Hades, and Ursula's involvement and plans were interconnected with the larger threat that laid outside of their respective world. Likewise, the Final Fantasy characters weren't thrown in for fanservice. Instead, they were reimagined to serve the story being written to fit into the overarching story. The example being Leon, Yuffie, Aerith, Cloud, and Cid being refugees from Hollow Bastion. Their inclusion helped ground the world while also providing mentorship and guidance to Sora. Kingdom Hearts 1 was built on the premise of embracing both Disney and Final Fantasy and making them parts of the story. It didn't rely on either franchise for popularity alone, it made them foundational pillars that elevated the story. This narrative and thematic integration helped Kingdom Hearts feel like more than a sum of its parts. Kingdom Hearts 1 and even parts of Kingdom Hearts 2 made an effort to ensure that Disney and Final Fantasy were essential components of the universe. This collaboration wasn't forced, it felt genuine. As the series progressed beyond the first game, a large shift began to occur. Disney worlds began to feel like side stories to the main story, and Final Fantasy all but disappeared. When Kingdom Hearts 3 released, the worlds became more like self-contained stories than vital pieces for the narrative. Sora, Donald, and Goofy were often reduced to observers, only really stepping in to assist in the final confrontations and the boss fights. Take Arendelle for example. The world followed the story beats of the original film, Sora's involvement literally being non-existent. The trio only had a few brief interactions with the cast, and were then left to roam around the mountain, only ever onlooking on a handful of segmented pieces of the film's story beats. The same can be said for the Caribbean, where the entire story happened off-screen while the trio roamed around collecting crabs. There's also Kingdom of Corona, where we were often separated from the characters, where then parts of the film would then take place. These worlds often resolved their narratives on their own, with the trio having little to no input. This approach marked a significant departure from the first game, where each world felt like a stepping stone for the overarching story, with some even being set pieces for the main story to take place. What was even more surprising was the near absence of Final Fantasy and its characters. While Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 incorporated them meaningfully into both the world building and plot, Kingdom Hearts 3 only made brief mentions of select characters during the base game, and when the Final Fantasy characters appeared in the Remind DLC, they felt like a glorified cameo. This wasn't a minor adjustment, this was a fundamental change in how the series viewed its own identity, moving away from a sense of collaboration towards something more insular. While there are practical reasons behind the reduced involvement of Disney, whether it be production schedules, a change in priorities, or perhaps an increase in restrictions, the shift nonetheless signaled a large creative shift. In regards to Final Fantasy and its characters, it's a more puzzling manner. After the release of Kingdom Hearts 3, many fans questioned the absence of Final Fantasy characters and began to speculate on the reasons for the lack of appearance. Tetsuya Nomura, the series director, provided several different comments around the time of the game's release, some of which raised more questions than answers. In a 2018 interview with US Gamer, Nomura stated that there were too many original characters to focus on, leaving not much space to include Final Fantasy characters in the main story. But the reason you haven't been shown any Final Fantasy characters is that there are so many original characters that need to resolve their own problems and issues. And because their issues and problems are very difficult, there just hasn't been that much space to fit Final Fantasy characters so far. This explanation is understandable on a practical level since the series' narrative has expanded significantly. Trying to manage the arcs of the growing cast in the series would undoubtedly be a challenge to deal with. However, at the same time, Nomura also suggested that the Final Fantasy characters serve more of a supporting role early in the series, essentially helping to introduce characters like Sora. Now that the original cast is well established, the support the Final Fantasy characters provided wasn't needed anymore. When you look back at the first Kingdom Hearts, Sora was still a new character, so we kinda had the Final Fantasy characters as supporting characters. But now that it's been 15 years, the original characters are more polished than they were before, so I don't think they need the Final Fantasy characters' help as much as they did before. Additionally, Nomura stated that when the first game was released, there weren't many games that brought the Final Fantasy characters together. Now that there is an abundance of titles that allow the Final Fantasy characters to interact with one another, he doesn't see the value of having this feature in Kingdom Hearts anymore. Also, when we first released Kingdom Hearts, there weren't that many other titles that brought together the Final Fantasy characters. I actually think that Kingdom Hearts may have actually been the first to do that, but nowadays, there are an abundance of titles to do that, so I don't see the value of having that kind of feature in the game anymore. In another interview, this time with Game Informer, Nomura clarified that Kingdom Hearts isn't, in his view, fundamentally a collaboration between Disney and Final Fantasy characters, stating how he really feels that that's not the basic concept of Kingdom Hearts. One thing I want to clear up is that a lot of fans are saying that Kingdom Hearts is this collaboration between Disney characters and Final Fantasy characters, but I feel that that's not the basic concept of Kingdom Hearts. That's not exactly what Kingdom Hearts is. When we released the first title, we only had a few original Kingdom Hearts characters. When they were interacting with really well-known beloved Disney characters, I felt nobody really knew these new characters, so it was harder for them to stand their ground just yet. And so, we had a lot of Final Fantasy characters involved to lend a hand for everyone to get to know these original Kingdom Hearts characters better. These explanations are hard to agree with because these comments create a sense that he doesn't see the Final Fantasy characters as part of the universe and as cameos of sorts. To add to this perspective doesn't quite align with some of his earlier statements. In the Kingdom Hearts 1 Ultimania, Nomura describes selecting Final Fantasy characters based on their personalities to fit specific roles in the story. Squall, for example, was chosen as a mentor figure because he felt like the right character to fit the role that needed to be filled. Well, I kept making the story. I thought about which characters to put in each role, and there were many places where Disney characters would not fit in. For example, I couldn't think of any Disney characters to put in as the Destiny Island children. When I thought about which character would guide Sora in Traverse Town, nothing struck me. Then I thought I should just make new characters, but they would not be as appealing as the Disney characters around them. Since that was the case, I came upon the idea of using Final Fantasy characters to choose which characters to fit the roles. When it came to choosing who would be the swordsman who guides Sora, I believed that Squall fit the role best. Furthermore, in the same Ultimania, Nomura asked if Final Fantasy characters would appear in a sequel, and Nomura expressed interest, notably wanting to expand on Cloud's storyline, implying that Final Fantasy characters had a deeper narrative potential beyond mere supporting figures for the original cast. This contrast between past intent and current justification has created much confusion. Did Nomura view the Final Fantasy characters as part of the series? Was there actually a shift in Nomura's perception of Final Fantasy characters in Kingdom Hearts? And if so, what exact reasons caused this shift to be made? It's hard to say. These mixed messages have created a sense of uncertainty. For many long-term fans, it's not simply about screen time, It's about knowing whether the core elements that define the series are still valued. With all this in mind, it's worth asking, where does Kingdom Hearts go from here? If the series is to evolve, should it embrace the collaboration that the series is built on? And what would it mean to bring this collaboration back to the forefront? As we approach the start of the next phase of the series, there has been a somewhat growing consensus that the series should abandon both Disney and Final Fantasy and only focus on its original aspects. Being with the series since the beginning, I find this opinion both heartbreaking and an impossibility. Kingdom Hearts would not be itself without these two. The series can and should stand on its own, but that doesn't mean it should leave behind what made it distinct. Despite the changes in direction over the years, Kingdom Hearts still holds a unique place in gaming, one of the few franchises that blends existing IPs with original storytelling. There is value in restoring the collaboration to help give the series its identity. Disney and its worlds don't need to be reduced to passive retellings. With thoughtful integration, they can once again act as set pieces to the emotional journey and serve as set pieces for tangible growth for the characters. Consider a film like Moana, a film that plays with the concept of darkness and has a plot dealing with the heart of Te-Fiti, things that perfectly align with concepts in Kingdom Hearts. There's even a film like Encanto, which explores the themes of generational trauma and acceptance, ideas that naturally fit within the series and can serve as a basis for growth for Sora and the other members of the cast. We can even finally give Maleficent some sense of meaningful contribution in the story by helping to connect the worlds back together and create another plotline that would play with the story of the Master and Masters, whether it serves to progress his own plan or be something that helps thwart them. Bringing back the Final Fantasy characters in a meaningful way wouldn't undercut the original cast. In fact, it could serve to enrich the original story. These characters can be used to fill out the universe of the series, be the mentor figures for the characters, or serve as reflections or foils to the original cast. For example, Ignis from Final Fantasy XV can interact with Remy, and the two can cook meals and come up with unique recipes. Or we can see Sora, Donald, and Goofy run into both Thea and Fran from Final Fantasy XII while the trio is visiting Jack Sparrow. Even beyond Disney and Final Fantasy, the series has demonstrated its potential to include other Square Enix franchises. The appearance of the World Ends With You characters in Dreamed Out Distance is a strong example of this. The Nier franchise, notably Nier Automata, dives into the topics of humanity, memory, and identity, concepts already explored through characters like Roxas, Xion, and Naminé. There's even Parasite Eve, a franchise that was once planned to have an appearance in Kingdom Hearts 1. The key, however, is effort, not just inclusion. These characters and potentially their own worlds must feel like they belong inside the universe of the Kingdom Hearts series. They should be introduced to serve a purpose for the narrative. Is it a lot to do? Yes. But by carefully and seamlessly integrating these IPs, the series can be something truly special. The Kingdom Hearts series has the ability to do so much that it just doesn't do. Some may worry I might want Kingdom Hearts to be something it's not, but far from it. Kingdom Hearts is a series born from the collaboration between Disney and Square Enix. It just needs to lean into that. Kingdom Hearts shouldn't become a generic JRPG. It was never meant to be one. It was, and can still be, a fusion of characters and original ideas. By leaning into this vision of different characters coming together, it can do what very few games attempt to do. Kingdom Hearts has always been more than just a game. It's a celebration of childhood that paves way to adulthood. It's a story about friendship, about identity, about light and darkness, and above all, about connection. It was born from a unique collaboration, from a surprising and unlikely partnership that somehow made perfect sense. And through that collaboration, it carved out a space in gaming that no other series can quite occupy. As the series has grown, it began to lose touch with the elements that helped define its identity. The reduction of Final Fantasy's role and the increasingly detachment of Disney worlds made the series feel more isolated, less adventurous, and at times, less magical. This doesn't mean the Kingdom Hearts series has no future. With Kingdom Hearts 4 on the horizon, there's a real opportunity to restore what was lost. By re-embracing its DNA to the fullest extent, the series has the ability to evolve into something even greater. Because if Kingdom Hearts is about anything, it's about connection, about building bridges between worlds and people, who at first seemed like they couldn't possibly coexist. It's an experience that can be celebrated as something dearly beloved.